Hi, everyone. Jim Flint and Dionna Bailey on the podcast, All Time High. Today is a big day. Dionna, tell everyone what they've won today. What are we taking off to the moon with?
Bitcoin. So we know that spot ETF was approved, right? 14 of the ones that applied, 11 of them got approved, which is huge for the industry. I mean, there's good and bad in both sides of it, which I'm sure we're going to get into in this.
Yeah, no, today is an exciting day. In fact, we were so excited that, well, I've got it's early in the morning, but you could be watching this late in the day and you might want to celebrate. And if you do, there is some Bitcoin wine out there. And we like to try to source our information, not our wine, but our information where we can. And this comes from a handcrafted bottle from Manos. You can find them online. I think it might take 6 to 8 weeks for it to arrive. And there are the lovely details that Dionna is displaying. This is not a paid advertisement or endorsement. This is just something that we found along the way. And as we continue our journey, we're actually about 2 minutes away from when the spot Bitcoin ETF is officially going to be listed. So I'm going to pull up a screen, Dionna, and we're going to see what we might catch here in a minute. But what are your thoughts kind of walking into this listing?
It's validation for the community, right? I mean, we've all been sitting here pushing and pushing and pushing and saying this is a legitimate thing. And now, even though they're saying they're not, behind it, or the SEC is not condoning Bitcoin and everybody should know the associated risks, the fact that they've opened the doors to it just shows that it's legitimate. It is an asset out there, a commodity that people can get their hands on. And now, this opens the door for the less technical people to be able to take their retirement accounts or, go to the Schwabs and say, hey, you guys, I want to invest in Bitcoin. And now those agencies can do it.
Oh, yeah, we are going to talk about that in just a second. You can see that part of what we're bringing to the table for our viewing public is now a live feed from Bloomberg. So as I look around my desktop, let's take a listen in as we're like minutes away.
1%. As yields and the
what they
yield
might be talking
yield
about.
curves are higher. One of the big banks, of course, is reporting tomorrow, Bank of America, along with JP Morgan and Citigroup, maybe some nerves into that. But take a look at Coinbase, Manis, 4.6%. This, of course, after that landmark decision by the
Coinbase
SEC to allow ETFs to directly buy Bitcoin. It's being called by many a significant milestone.
Okay,
yeah, I'll call that a significant milestone.
This show.
Wow.
Candidates. The interesting thing is, okay, so Bitcoin ETF, why is Coinbase up?
Why is Coinbase up? I think it's kind of an indirect. You know what? I think it's because this whole thing legitimizes the investment thesis for Bitcoin or cryptocurrency. Wouldn't you? Yeah. Would you agree?
Well, behind the scenes, these companies have actually been doing deals with the exchanges, right? And so, okay. And when you think about it, so if I'm a person, and this is where it gets a little wonky, right? Anybody can buy Bitcoin. Anybody, especially if you have Cash App, right? You got Cash App, you jump on, you buy Bitcoin, you pay whatever the fee is. Now, if you want to buy through one of these other agencies, you're going to pay both the agency fee, and the agency is going to pay the exchange fee, right? So you're doubling the fees that are kind of going into your purchase of it. So while it's great for accessibility, you're going to have that little sting of paying some extra money for somebody else to manage it.
Yeah, and one of the things I went back and I did some research. You wouldn't believe this, but the spot ETF for gold didn't come into play until 2004.
Wow.
And so when we think, would you think of Bitcoin as digital gold, or is that?
I mean, when it comes to crypto, every different blockchain and cryptocurrency, they all have their spot in whatever they're trying to solve in the world. But when it comes to the actual financial, like the king, Bitcoin is gold, period.
Fair enough. And so what I was looking at was trying to figure out in the way that I do the connection between that ETF in 04 and the one that's happening here in 2023. And I was using some research from, I want to give credit here to Matt Hogan. He's with Bitwise. He is their CIO. And what he mentioned is something you've already picked up on intuitively. When you launch something like this, you're going to attract the institutional investors, but you're also going to attract a whole new cohort of people that are going to do it on their own. Because right now, you've had the pioneers like you, I'd say a little bit like me, and you've got to get a way to get in. And my way in I own it was through Robinhood. I didn't know not your keys, not your coin at that time. But there's going to be people that look at this and say, okay, I can buy the ETF for my pension or 401k or some other method. We're going to take a look in a second at some stuff. But there's going to be this whole other group of people going, okay, now it's legal, right? And sometimes people define their activities through legality.
Yep.
And I don't know if it's going to change Senator Warren or Jamie Dimon. I bet Jamie Dimon changes first, but
Of course he would. Of course he
yeah.
always would. But as soon as he figures out how to make money off of it, he's going to change.
And that's what's happening. I mean, this legitimizes with 11 Bitcoin spot ETFs on today, ironically, January 11th. So this is a day of 11s if you're headed to Vegas.
Oh, you know what was interesting? So in 2013, on January 10th, 2013 was the first tweet about Bitcoin from Hal Finney. Did you know that?
I did not know that.
And that kind of, yeah, 10 years later to the day.
Well, I wish I could pull that up, but here we go. We're going to share the screen a little bit more today and talk about something that's going on real quick. I'm going to go straight to the tweet thing in a second, but I was going to tell our audience, our fast growing subscriber base, to like this video, to subscribe and share it. Our intent today was to go live on air, but as you can see in our startup, we have to get approval from YouTube. So that approval was sent this morning, and you can see that I requested it January 11th, 2024. It's going to take them 24 hours to give us that approval, but sometime in the month of January, let's make that goal to go live for our audience that we are building out on this all-time high. But back to the tweet component. So yeah, what date was the one with Hal? What date was that, if you remember?
January 10th, 2013.
So I think this was January 10th as well.
Yeah, that's the 10 days, 10 years to the day. From the time of the first tweet to when the Bitcoin ETF was approved.
So the irony here, this was where the SEC sent this tweet out, and then Gary Gensler came back 5 minutes, no doubt, 5 minutes later, and said that it was hacked.
Yeah.
And when you look at this tweet, it seems pretty polished and buttoned up, wouldn't you say?
I do. Yeah, and the irony, right, that the organization that's there to make sure market manipulation doesn't happen gets hacked, and a tweet goes out that causes market manipulation. So the irony there just is hilarious.
And you can see too when this happened. Okay, January 9th. So he says the account was compromised. An unauthorized tweet was posted. I'm not going to say that it was the end of the market day when all this was going down, but it was the end of the market day. And I'm thinking he's on the East Coast. So whether that is during, I mean, are you kidding me? Like with that little amount of time left. And so,
you know what I wonder? I wonder if they had it scheduled and they scheduled it for the wrong day, because it was about a day later, the same time, right, when they actually approved it. So rather than saying like, hey, it got hacked, just admit somebody posted it on the wrong day.
No, see, I even go further than that. I have this theory that if it doesn't make common sense, it makes financial sense. So let me show you. First off, he was too quick to have this available as well. Now, you can see the date. He said it before, but he's the one who's supposed to provide and govern investor protection.
Yeah.
But I also, I just am too familiar and believe that there's market manipulation going on as well. Look how the market moved in that little window of time when see that green line there?
Yeah.
It zoomed up, then he corrected the commentary and it fell out.
Yeah.
And I don't know how many millions or billions of dollars of assets were liquidated in that flip flop.
I think they said 9 billion, right? I think it was pretty significant.
9 billion. I mean, think about that. FTX, it took them a while to do 8 billion worth of damage. And it took the SEC in that tweet about 5 minutes.
Yep. Yeah, you know, the Bitcoin is the second largest payment system next to Visa.
That's incredible to think about.
Yeah, it even beats out MasterCard.
So we're going to go back to the scoreboard. I'm going to ask you a question. This is, and go ahead real quick, if you don't mind, do the financial disclaimer.
Oh, we are not financial advisors. We are not here to give you financial advice. Make sure you do your research and do not go do not make investments that are going to put you in a hardship if they go wrong. But this is entertainment and knowledge value. Do your own research and make sure that you are comfortable and in the financial means of whatever financial decisions you make.
Yes, I do not know your risk tolerances. They're going to be different than ours. So as we share this is for entertainment value only. But let's take a look at what is going on today, because my question to Dionna is going to be that the theory that you buy the rumor and sell the news. I mean, look at it this is a 1-day chart. CoinMarketCap is wonderful to be able to see these things and how the market moves. Wow. I mean, you're looking at, it's off to the races this morning. We're up to 48,000.
Yeah, and today is the day that money can actually start flowing through. So it was approved yesterday, but today is the first day that they can actually start doing it. So they're anticipating roughly, 2 billion going into crypto just from this one thing. So it'll be interesting to see how it all shakes out. But how did it work out with gold?
How did it work out with gold? Okay, I actually have that information. I didn't even know that you would ask. So the gold ETF came about in November of 2004. I'm looking down at my notes. And gold rose for 9 straight years.
Oh, wow.
So I believe access drives demand. That's my thought. That's my original thought, given that that's the concept. But here's the thing. The flows don't come all at once. If I looked and I stacked it up and they grew year over year, there is, I don't want to call it the parabola, but the exponential growth curve happens as more and more people talk about it. You see, like up until this point, I was just the crazy uncle that talked about it at Thanksgiving or the holiday dinner. Now my brother-in-law is going to be talking about it, and he used to be in regional banking. So that's going to be interesting to see that dynamic shift. And then my nephews who are in their mid-20s, one who lives in New York, which is the financial capital of the world, he's going to start talking about it. Yeah. So this conversation just got filled in at the dinner table in many, many new ways. And that is part of the catalyst.
Yeah, you're not the crazy uncle anymore.
I'm not.
You're the smart one. You're the one who knew, right? Super early, Jim.
Time will tell. Time will tell. But yes, I've seen this happen, as we've talked about before, with the internet. We've seen it happen with Facebook, Amazon, Netflix, and now we're looking at the tokenization of assets. And this is one huge leap. It's a leap year. We're leaping forward. Yeah. But I do want to talk about the all-time high concept, right? We can see the market cap when we started this show was at 1.65 trillion. Now today it's at 1.82. So did you say about 200 billion was expected?
I think it said 2 billion, but that was just like today or this week, like within the next few days, they anticipate 2 billion flowing in.
Fair enough.
Nice. I mean, that's, who knows where that statistic actually came from, especially if 9 billion got liquidated on news. But that could have been the broader market, right? It'll be interesting to go back for a second, because I know you had wanted to touch on something else, but when we were talking about how Bitcoin is gold, right? So what are the similarities and what are the differences between the two? Well, for one, both of them have scarcity, right? There's only so much gold in the earth or in the world, and there's only so much Bitcoin. So they're very comparable in that way. The scarcity is going to increase even more for Bitcoin this year when the halving happens, right? Or the halving happens. And so that means that less miners will get less Bitcoin for rewards for the transactions that they do within the network. So that means less Bitcoin is going to be available. There's only going to be 21 million ever in the world. And so that scarcity will help rise the demand. And in that way, it compares to gold. But at some point, you have to make money off of it, right? So in order to make the money off of it, you've got to sell it. So it'll be interesting to see, now that you have so much money being able to control the network, how it actually plays out.
Yeah, you're not kidding. And I've got a theory here that I'm going to share with the audience that works for me, because the numbers tell me stories. That's just the way it works. So I'm going to share a story that I've developed, because they're round numbers that matter. And when I look at what you were talking about, you can see this on CoinMarketCap. The total supply is 19.595 million BTC have been mined. And that's capped at 21 million.
Yep.
So when you look at that, it shows me right here, and I don't know if you can see my cursor moving, but 93.31% of all circulating supply is in rotation.
Yep.
And as I look at that, the thing that people don't talk about often, they talk about the price, but I want to know what the market cap is. And so when I look at the market cap, when we're close to 20 million, I know that you can see it right there. Are you able to read it? 950 billion, so almost $1 trillion.
Yep.
So what I'm believing is that there's going to be a lot of news. You may buy this, you may sell this event, but the one event that I'm going to sell, not financial advice, but it's my path for an exit strategy or to buy an inverse Bitcoin deal. I'll talk about that in a second. But I think once we get to 1 trillion, again, we've been there before for Bitcoin, there's going to be a lot of people saying, okay, this is a local top. I get it. We hit our mark. I need to get out. And ironically, not only would the 1 trillion market cap be part of the piece of the puzzle, but it'll also be $50,000 per Bitcoin. So you're going to have a double narrative during the halving. And so a lot of those automatic buy and sell orders will trigger around 50 grand. It's just very human nature, human condition. So whether you're a 50 grand person or a 1 trillion person, you're actually the same person right about now.
Yeah, I actually, in the last spike of, what was it, 2021, when we hit 60,000, I gave Bitcoin to all my family, right? We talked about that.
Yeah,
I was moving, I was tipping people on Bitcoin. I'm like, here, download this and let me give you this. So I had given some Bitcoin to everybody, and one person called it at the top, and they were like, I want to liquidate. And I was like, oh, I don't know. I don't really know if you should do that. And
things going up. Yeah.
4 times their money by that time, right? And they called it right at the top and it dropped down. And I was like, man, that was good. But you hold because you're like, oh, I can get more and I can get more and I can get more. And the point is, all of these wealthy people, even these fund managers, at some point they have to have profits.
They do, and they will. And that is part of what these ups and downs and the volatility, it is attractive to people who understand the market better than retail.
Yes.
Retail at some point will be left holding a bag. Now, if you hodl, you can go through, and you've been through this, and maybe you can talk about it. Like you're really like envious, and people jump in, and things are going from 30,000 to 70,000, which is basically what happened in October of 21, if I'm not mistaken. We feel like 4 years later, 3 years later, we're kind of in that same window. Gosh, it's only 3.5 maybe. It's cascading up again, but you've been through a couple where we've tipped over the top. How do you mentally prepare for that mountaintop that then cascades back down, and you got 3 or 4 years where you're holding a loss?
Yeah, I mean, this goes back to, don't put more in than you can afford, right? So whatever you put in, make sure that you can weather the highs and lows, right? So if it goes up, I'm great. If it goes down, I can hang in there. And we've seen it, right? Since I've been in crypto, right before the ICO boom, we hit an all-time high. 2018, we had crypto winter. 21, we had an all-time high. 22, we had crypto winter. And now here we are in 24. It seems like a 3-year cycle, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Like it's a 3-year cycle. So if you jump into Bitcoin and you jump into crypto and it goes up and then all of a sudden it drops down, just hodl, hang in there, because time has said it is more than likely to go back up again. And again, this is not financial.
Not financial. Yeah, your risk tolerance is your risk tolerance. And all that comes down to your own personal liquidity. Can you afford to hold through a down cycle? And at some point, my belief too, like yours, is we will go past the collective all-time high of 3 trillion. At that point, I don't know exactly what Bitcoin is or was, but I could find out. I believe it was about half of that. It's typically half of the circulating supply. But let's talk a little bit more to the audience today about where they can find some of the intel and see if we can even see some of the action going on in the marketplace today. So what I've got here.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, go ahead. Jump in.
I was just going to say, the first thing I recommend for anybody, if you don't know what Bitcoin is, read the white paper. Google Bitcoin white paper and actually read it so you understand what you are buying.
I'll put that in the show links today.
Perfect.
Yes.
Yeah.
Great recommendation. Great recommendation. And then if you're looking to track some of the price action, I just went in this morning, looked at Wall Street, and they've got a list of, I think 11. We talked about that earlier. There were 3 that were rejected. I'm not quite sure why. I think you had some insight on that, Dionna. What was that take?
I said it had more to do with the timing of the filing. Okay. It wasn't necessarily anything with the company. So, I mean, more than likely, more as they continue to approve them, you know, more and more are going to open up.
Did you note the vote? Did you see the vote?
I didn't. I didn't.
So
Unanimous?
they released the vote. So there are 5 commissioners, need 3 to approve it. I think they voted down party lines, but the person who flipped was Gensler approved it.
Of course.
So he
But
was.
how do you be one of the biggest supporters of FTX and not? Right? Like, I mean, I kind of feel like he'd have egg on his face at that point to say, oh, I was working with these guys and I'm here. And understanding the legal like responsibility that the SEC can't come out, something that's so volatile and can be hacked and, you know, can be manipulated in such a way is not necessarily the smartest thing to tell everybody to go out and invest in because it's safe. I mean, but then again, companies are the same way. And so Gary Gensler, you know, to be so pro FTX and then all of a sudden come back and say no, I mean, I think it would make him look really shady.
Well, I think he probably
had more involvement in FTX.
It would make him look, or he already does look. I mean, I'm just saying the courts found on this particular case, because Grayscale, to my understanding, brought this to the courts, and the court said that the SEC was acting in an arbitrary and capricious manner, meaning that there was no, in my non-legal interpretation, that there was no rhyme or reason to how they were making the decisions to delay.
Yeah.
So Gary
Yeah,
kind of moves when things become inevitable. And I think this spot Bitcoin ETF was inevitable.
Yeah, and just to touch on that lawsuit, the reason they sued was because years ago, the SEC said that Bitcoin was a commodity, right? And so if Bitcoin's a commodity, then it's already got that like foot in the door. And Blackstone went to move, like they had their assets and they went to move it into another place, and the SEC said no. And so they sued and they won, right? And here we are.
And here we are. And here we are too. I wanted to share this, if you can see my screen, for people to consider. We mentioned one of them. I'm just seeing if it's up and running. This is the Bitwise Bitcoin ETF. It shows, its call symbols are BITB, and it looks like it's trading at 28.48. I don't know the restriction. Oh, there we go.
There we go.
We're live.
And we're not endorsing any of these, by the way.
No. Pick which one you want. There are fees. You mentioned that earlier. Do you want to talk about that a little bit? Because what they are competing on right now, the different ETFs, it's the fees.
Yep, it's the fees. And I think some of them are waiving them up to six. Okay, so they're waiving them up to 6 months or $1 billion. So how about that?
Well, I'm sure I'm going to be short on the billion. So
yeah, just a little, right?
A little bit.
Oh no, who knows? Let's see what happens.
But your pensions are not, right? So they're trying to attract, I don't know, the teacher's retirement, the different. So you're going to be putting a lot of capital. Now, I don't know that the teacher retirement system is ready for that in Texas or New York or any other place, but a lot, the firefighter pensions, when you look though at the historical returns, and past activity is not predictive of future results, you see that there's some upside potential that they would participate in, would love to participate in.
Yeah. And you know, the risk is an interesting thing because so where are they storing these on an exchange? Are they storing them themselves? Because we know that hacks do happen. In fact, I know a very well-versed crypto company who, you know, just accidentally did something, or they had something somewhere. Actually, this happened to a lot of crypto companies, but very recently, a very well-known one. They had their keys somewhere. Somebody got the keys, hacked the account just like that. And so, you know, I think who you have responsible for overseeing these is extremely important, and making sure that you have the utmost understanding of how to protect the assets. Because imagine if teachers invested and then all of a sudden all their money got stolen. What is, look at FTX right now. What is,
I know.
For that?
You don't know, and this does set up that way. In theory, if the software is running it and Satoshi, who hasn't done anything with the wallet for years, actually, I believe last week, 26 Bitcoins were placed into the wallet from an unknown account. But the fact that there's activity around that account means that it's not completely dormant, right? Somebody's either gifting or setting up for something to happen in the future. I don't want to speculate. I don't know what is going on, but look, anybody in crypto, inherently there's speculation involved.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. You like everybody, there's been rumors of like Satoshi's dead, but if money's moving, if 26 Bitcoin goes into his wallet, somebody's got to have those private keys, or someone just lost 26 Bitcoin, right? Like if you don't have access to that wallet, it would not make sense to move money there. And I can't see it being an error just because of how the addresses are, right? So it was probably intentional. Maybe Satoshi's alive. It'll be interesting to see if it ever comes out who Satoshi is.
Well, now too, there's reporting requirements from the IRS that if you receive more than $10,000 worth of cryptocurrency, you are to report it. So I don't know how that's going to get reported, but
Unless it's not a US person.
that could be the case. And I don't know what the jurisdiction laws look like. I am not a legal expert or a financial advisor, but I do want to share with you one of the things that I do when we get to a market top, wherever you think you may otherwise be. And you can see right here, right now, the volatility for Bitcoin, and we're now at 48,739. It happens on the daily. This is, oh my gosh, right? You see all the,
What are we looking at? A week?
that's a
Day?
week. Yes.
Okay.
And
Yeah,
I
look
can
at
back
that.
out to a month, and now all of a sudden, you know, we've had a nice little run. Those red and blue lines kind of indicate sector tops over
Yep.
this time horizon. And then if we go even further out a year, you can see that it's starting to really, you know, it's bounced up here.
Yep.
And in a previous episode, I mentioned that in none of the other cryptos that I track is there this blue line that shows somebody's evidence. I really do want somebody from TradingView to tell me what's going on here, but they're tracking this thing up. And so
Yeah.
far, they've been somewhat on target. But
Yeah.
here's my thing. Wherever you think that the inverse to your HODL recommendation is, I will sometimes, for me, this is a Bitcoin inverse. And I think of it as Bitcoin insurance, so that I can hold my asset. I can also, on the other side of this, look at it and say, okay, if it goes down, I have protection against that downside risk.
Yep.
And so this is where you say, okay, I may believe that this thing is going up, and then I do know that it's volatile. And so this is one way. There's so many different ways. I'm not a financial advisor. Your risk tolerances are your own, but this is one way to consider playing the game of for entertainment value. How's that? We'll leave it at that.
I actually take I have a dual approach to it. So I have so much that I hodl, and then I have so much that I actually play with, and I'll cash it out and I'll go back in, and I'll cash it out and I'll go back in. And if you actually keep compounding that, then you can, I mean, it's kind of like what DeFi is, right? You can take your thing, you can compound it, you can make more and more and more and more as you go. I mean, but to be able to time the market like that, you have to be actively watching it, actively understanding it. And to be honest with you, things just happen. Like nobody predicted FTX was going to happen with FTX, and it wrecked. It absolutely wrecked us. And so, you know, making sure that you have both, or that you're not don't go all in on anything. Like it doesn't make sense to put your money all in anything, because what if something goes wrong? You just lost everything. So a little bit here, a little bit there, on your risk. This is not financial advice. This is what I do. Just letting you know that there are different ways to approach this market.
For sure. And there's a whole different dynamic associated with like trading options. And we're not even going to touch that, because that is stuff. Yeah, that's just where people get, that's where people go to get wrecked.
Yeah, the average Joe, if you're out there and you're not in Bitcoin yet, I just want you to think for a second, when this institutional money actually starts coming in, there's nobody banned from buying Bitcoin. Like there's nobody. If you can download Cash App, if you can download a wallet, you can buy Bitcoin, period. And so for that to have an actual open free market like that is the first. And anybody could make money off of it. And you see a lot of these young, man, I've worked for some interesting people that were young and got super rich on Bitcoin and thought they understood things. And, you know, it's possible, is my point. Is
oh yeah.
Up until now, up until Bitcoin, you had to be an invested or
accredited investor.
Thank you. You had to be an accredited investor in order to play the market and get in there and see any kind of profits or rewards. This is an open market now, and anybody can play with it. And I encourage everybody to do some research and understand why.
And don't kid yourself, where it is right now, market manipulation is part of the game. Look what happened with the X account of the SEC earlier this week. I mean, and to imagine in 5 minutes, it leveled the losses that FTX had incurred.
Yeah, or look at Dogecoin, right? Dogecoin it was a joke. It was a meme coin. It was made as a haha. And you know, Elon Musk gets a hold of it. He posts one thing about Doge and it goes all the way up. So, you know, that it happens. Those things are there. And I would predict that there's going to be even more market manipulation as you see these bigger investors getting more and more hands on Bitcoin, right? The more they own, the more they control, the more they can manipulate it.
Yeah, so stay tuned. Things are going to continue to be exciting. We're tracking this thing all the way to an all-time high. Dionna, thank you for your time today. And to all our subscribers, listeners, enjoy this episode and look forward to the next one.